Hello, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to Behind the Magic, a podcast from Aradia's Closet where we dive deeper into the components of magic. I'm Tanya, your host. I have all kinds of things planned for you. Book reviews, how-tos, and interviews with some really amazing people. So if you want to gain a little more perspective on magic, tune in each week for more. Today, I want to share one of my favorite stories with you, The Other People. It's by Oberon Zell. First, let me tell you a little bit about Oberon Zell, and this comes straight from his website, oberonzell.com. Oberon Zell is a modern-day wizard and a leading elder in the worldwide magical community. Oberon is a true Renaissance man, a psychologist, a metaphysician, theologian, naturalist, artist, inventor, carpenter, sculptor, teacher, author, and priest. Oberon received his B.A. in psychology, sociology, anthropology, and pre-med from Westminster College in 1965, attended graduate school at Washington University on a scholarship in clinical psychology, received a Doctor of Divinity from Life Science College in 1967, and earned his teacher certificate from Harris Teacher College in 1968. He has served as a teacher and counselor in public and private schools, from Head Start to high school, as well as being Director of Services for the St. Louis Humane Development Corporation, 1966 to 1975. He taught at Lane Community College in Eugene, Oregon in the late 70s. Inspired by Robert A. Heinlein's prophetic science fiction novel, Stranger in a Strange Land, 1961, Oberon co-founded the Church of All Worlds on April 7, 1962. An initiate in several different mystical traditions, he has founded and participated in many pagan ecumenical groups and projects, including the Council of Themis, the Council of Earth Religions, the Universal Federation of Pagans, the PayPal Apology Project, the Pagan Leaders Summit, the Grey Council, and the Sonoma County Pagan Network. Oberon has played a major role in the founding and unification of the pagan community, and in reclaiming the earth-nature-based spiritual heritage of pre-Christian Europe. In his award-winning magazine, Green Egg, 1968, he was the first to adopt the terms pagan and neo-pagan to describe the newly emerging nature religions of the 1960s. The neo-pagan green religion is now considered to be one of the fastest-growing spiritual movement in the English-speaking world, claiming more than 5 million adherents worldwide. And Oberon is acknowledged as one of its founding elders, quote, the father of neo-paganism, end quote. In 1970, Oberon articulated the premise that all life on Earth is a single vast living being known as Mother Earth, or Gaia, to the ancient Greeks. His initial paper, Theogenesis, was published in Green Egg in 1971, 2 years before British atmospheric biochemist James Lovelock first presented his Gaia hypothesis to the scientific community. Oberon's theology of deep ecology has been universally embraced throughout the pagan and New Age communities. Oberon met and fell in love with the incomparable Morning Glory, his soulmate and beloved wife of 40 years, at the 1973 Gnostic Aquarium Festival in Minneapolis, where he was a keynote speaker. They married April of 1974, and from 1977 to 1985, they lived in a 506,000-acre intentional community in the mountains of Northern California, creating a rural homestead and wilderness retreat center. On February 26, 1979, they designed and led a ritual with other pagan leaders to celebrate the total solar eclipse at a full-scale recreation of Stonehenge in Washington state, a huge public event attended by an estimated 4,000 people. Oberon and Morning Glory's research into arcane lore and ancient legends resulted in the famous Living Unicorn Project, initiated in 1979. The Zells traveled throughout North America in the early 80s exhibiting their authentic unicorns at Renaissance fairs and other events, during which period they appeared on countless local and national television talk shows. The project culminated with the leasing of several of their living unicorns to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. Continuing to explore fables and mysteries, in 1985, Oberon organized a video diving expedition to Australia and New Guinea to solve and document the mystery of the mermaid. Other adventures have taken Oberon to Peru, Hawaii, Alaska, Costa Rica, Mexico, and archaeological sites throughout Europe and the Aegean. In 1999, he visited England for the final total solar eclipse of the millennium, which he celebrated with local pagans at an ancient stone circle in Cornwall. For more than 50 years, Oberon has written and published countless articles and several books on mysteries of history, Gaian theory, magic, shamanism, mythology, anomalies, cryptozoology, archaeology, cosmology, and related topics. His best-selling Grimoire for the Apprenticed Wizard, New Page Books, 2004, is an essential basic reference work that will continue to serve as a resource throughout the reader's lifetime. That book was followed by a companion for the Apprentice Wizard in 2006, Creating Circles and Ceremonies with Morning Glory, 2007, A Wizard's Bestiary with Ashby Kirk in 2007, and Green Egg Omelette, 2008, an anthology of art and articles from 40 years of his legendary magazine. As a follow-up to the Grimoire, Oberon founded the online Grey School of Wizardry in 2004. With dozens of highly qualified teachers, the Grey School offers more than 500 unique and excellent classes on myth, magic, and mysteries, as well as classical and modern liberal arts studies and ancient languages in 16 different departments for majors and minors. As headmaster, Oberon has been called the real Albus Dumbledore to aspiring Harry Potters. Oberon's favorite art project is his ongoing sculpture and jewelry series of gods, goddesses, and mythological creatures, presented as the Mythic Images Collection. His masterwork is the Millennial Gaia, a sculptural representation of Mother Earth based on his 1970 Theogenesis vision. Oberon's and Morning Glory's life story was released by Llewellyn in February of 2014, The Wizard and the Witch, with John Solek. Sadly, Morning Glory died of cancer on May 13, 2014. Subsequently, Oberon moved to Santa Cruz, California, where he opened the Academy of Arcana in November of 2015 as a physical campus of the Grey School with a library, museum, and gift store. After 2 years of worldwide media attention, including an award-winning film, The Wizard Oz, the Academy was closed in November of 2017. So that's what you'll read about Oberon Zell on his website. Now I want to read to you the story The Other People. And this is an article that was published 3 or 4 years ago in Green Egg. Ding dong, goes the doorbell. Is it Avon calling? Or perhaps Ed McMahon with my $3 million? No, it's Yahweh's Witnesses again, just wanting to have a nice little chat about the Bible. Boy, did they ever come to the wrong house. So we invited them in. Enter freely and of your own will. Hey, it's Sunday morning. Nothing much going on. Why not have a little entertainment? Diane and I amuse ourselves watching their expressions as they check out the living room. Great horned owl on the back of my chair, ceremonial masks and medicine skulls of dragons and unicorns on the wall, crystals, wands, staffs, swords, lots of goddess figures, and several altars, boa constrictor draped in amorous embrace over the elk horn, white doves sitting in the hanging planters, cats and weasels underfoot, iron dragons snorting steam atop the wood stove, posters and paintings of wizards and dinosaurs and witchy women, some proudly naked, sculptures of mythological beasties, and lots more dinosaurs, warp 6 on the star-filled view screen of my computer, a 5-foot model of the USS Enterprise, and the skeleton of a plesiosaur hanging from the ceiling. Many books, most of them dealing with obviously weird subjects, to say nothing of the great horned owl perched on the back of my chair, and the unicorn grazing in the front yard. You know, early Addams Family decor. And then, of course, it being late in the morning, you can expect Morning Glory to come wandering out naked, looking for her wake-up cup of tea. Morning Glory naked is a truly impressive sight, and the witlesses look as if she set her titties on stun as they stood immobilized, hands clasped over their groins. With the stage set and all the actors in place, the show is ready to begin. Their mission, of course, is to save our heathen souls by tuning us on to the word of the Lord, their Bible. I guess they figure some of us just haven't heard about it yet, and we're all eagerly awaiting their joyous tidings of personal salvation through giving our rational faculties to Jesus. Every time they come around, I look forward to trying out a new reposit. Sure, it may be cruel and sadistic of me, but hey, I didn't call them up and ask them to come over. They entered at their own risk. This time should be pretty good. After letting them run off their basic rap, while lovely Morning Glory serves us all hot herb tea, I innocently remark, but none of that applies to us. We have no need for salvation because we don't have original sin. We are the other people. Huh? What? They reply eloquently. It's clear they've never heard this one before. Right, I say. It's all in your Bible. And I proceed to tell them the story using their own book for reference. Genesis 1:26. The Elohim said, "Let us make humanity in our own image, in the likeness of ourselves, and let them be masters of the fish of the sea, the birds of heaven, the cattle, all the wild beasts, and all the reptiles that crawl upon the earth." Elohim is a plural word, including male and female, and should probably be translated as gods or pantheon. 127. The gods created humanity in the image of themselves. In the image of the gods they created them. Male and female they created them. 128. The gods blessed them, saying to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and conquer it. Be masters of the fish of the sea, the birds of the heaven, and all living animals on earth." Now clearly, here we are talking about the original creation of the human species, male and female. All the animals, plants, etc. have all been created in previous verses. This is before the Garden of Eden, and Yahweh is not mentioned as the creator of these people. The next chapter talks about how Yahweh, an individual member of the pantheon, goes about assembling his own special little botanical and zoological garden in Eden, and making his own little man to inhabit it. Genesis 2:7. Yahweh, God, fashioned a man of dust from the soil. Then he breathed into his nostrils a breath of life, and thus the man became a living being. 2:8. Yahweh, God, planted a garden in Eden, which is in the east, and there he put the man he had fashioned. 2:9. Yahweh, God, caused to spring up from the soil every kind of tree, enticing to look at and good to eat, with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden. 2:15. Yahweh, God, took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and take care of it. Now this next is crucial. Note Yahweh's precise words in 2:16. Then Yahweh, God, gave this man an admonition. You may eat indeed of all the trees in the garden. 2:17. Nevertheless, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you are not to eat. For on the day you eat of it, you shall most surely die. Fateful words those. We will refer back to this admonition later. Then Yahweh decides to make a woman to go with the man. Now don't forget that the pantheon had earlier created a whole population of people, male and female, who are presumably doing just fine somewhere outside the gates of Eden. But this setup in Eden is Yahweh's own little experiment and will unfold to its own separate destiny. 2:21. So Yahweh, God, made the man fall into a deep sleep, and while he slept, he took one of his ribs and enclosed it in flesh. 2:22. Yahweh, God, built the rib he had taken from the man into a woman and brought her to the man. Right. Man gives birth to a woman. Sure he does. But that's the way the story is told here. 2:25. Now both of them were naked, the man and his wife, but they felt no shame in front of each other. Well, of course not. Why should they? But take careful note of those words, as they will also prove to be significant. Now this next part is where it starts to get interesting. Enter the serpent. Genesis 3:1. The serpent was the most subtle of all the wild beasts that Yahweh, God, had made. It asked the woman, "Did God really say you were not to eat from any of the trees in the garden?" 3:2. The woman answered the serpent, "We may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden, but of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat it, nor touch it under pain of death." 3:4. Then the serpent said to the woman, "No, you will not die." 3:5. God knows, in fact, that on the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. What a remarkable statement! Your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. The serpent directly contradicts Yahweh. Obviously, one of them has to be lying. Which one? Which one do you suppose? And if the serpent speaks the truth, wouldn't you wish to eat of the magic fruit? Wouldn't it be a good thing to become like gods, knowing of good and evil? Or is it preferable to remain ignorant? Genesis 3:6. The woman saw that the tree was good to eat and pleasing to the eye, and that it was desirable for the knowledge that it could give. So she took some of its fruit and ate it. She gave some also to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. 3:7. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together to make themselves loincloths. The author makes an interesting assumption here, that if you realize you're naked, you will automatically want to cover yourself. Further implications will unfold shortly. Genesis 3:8. The man and his wife heard the sound of Yahweh, God, walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from Yahweh, God, among the trees of the garden. 3:9. But Yahweh, God, called to the man. "Where are you?" he asked. 3:10. "I heard the sound of you in the garden," he replied. "I was frightened because I was naked, so I hid." 3:11. "Who told you that you were naked?" he asked. "Have you been eating of the trees I forbade you to eat?" And so the sign of the fall becomes modesty. Take note of this. The descendants of Adam and Eve will be distinguished throughout history from virtually all other peoples by their obsessive modesty taboos, wherein they will feel ashamed of being naked. It follows that those who feel no shame in being naked, by definition, not carriers of the spiritual disease of original sin. Genesis 3:12. The man replied, "It was the woman you put with me. She gave me the fruit and I ate it." Right. Blame the woman. What a turkey. 3:13. Then Yahweh, God, asked the woman, "What is this you have done?" The woman replied, "The serpent tempted me and I ate it." So of course she blames the serpent. But just what did the serpent do that was so evil? Why, he called Yahweh a liar. Was he wrong? Let's see. 3:21. Yahweh, God, made clothes out of skins for the man and his wife, and they put them on. Out of skins. This means that Yahweh had to kill some innocent animals to pander to Adam and Eve's new obsession. And now we come to the crux of the fall. Yahweh had said back there in chapter 2:17, regarding the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that on the day you eat of it, you shall most surely die. The serpent, on the other hand, had contradicted Yahweh in chapter 3:4. No, you will not die. God knows, in fact, that on the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowing of good and evil. So what actually happened? Who lied and who told the truth about this remarkable fruit? The answer is given in the next verse, 3:22. Then Yahweh, God, said, "See, the man has become like one of us with his knowledge of good and evil. He must not be allowed to stretch his hand out next and pick from the tree of life also, and eat some and live forever." Get that? Yahweh himself admits that he had lied. In fact, and in Yahweh's own words, the serpent spoke the absolute truth. And moreover, Yahweh tells the rest of the pantheon that he intends to evict Adam, and presumably Eve as well, to keep them from gaining immortality to go with their newly acquired divine knowledge, to prevent them, in other words, from truly becoming gods. So who in this story comes off as a benefactor of humanity, and who comes off as a tyrant? The serpent. never lied. This story, to digress slightly, bears a remarkable resemblance to a contemporary tale from ancient Greece. In that version, the serpent, later identified as Lucifer, the light-bearer, may be equated with the heroic titan Prometheus, who championed humanity against the tyranny of Zeus, who wished for people to be mere slaves of the gods. Prometheus, whose name means forethought, gave people wisdom, intelligence, and fire stolen from Olympus. Moreover, he ordained the portions of animal sacrifice so that humans got the best parts, the meat and the hides, while the portion that was burned to the gods was the bones and the fat. In punishment for this defiance of his divine authority, Zeus condemned Prometheus to a terrible punishment to be chained to a mountain in the Caucasus, where Zeus's griffin would devour his liver each day. It would grow back each night. Zeus promised to relent if Prometheus would reveal his great secret knowledge, who would succeed Zeus as supreme god. Prometheus refused to tell, but history has revealed the answer. The interesting thing about all of this is that the Greeks properly regarded Prometheus as a noble hero in his defiance of unjust tyranny. One may wonder why the serpent is not so well regarded. On the contrary, snakes are loathed throughout Christendom. Genesis 3:23. So Yahweh, God, expelled him from the Garden of Eden to till the soil from which he had been taken. 3:24. He banished the man, and in front of the Garden of Eden he posted the cherubs, and the flame of a flashing sword to guard the way to the tree of life. So that's it for the fall. But the story of Adam and Eve doesn't end there. Genesis 4:1. The man had intercourse with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. 4:2. She gave birth to a second child, Abel, the brother of Cain. Now Abel became a shepherd and kept flocks, while Cain tilled the soil. 4:3. Time passed, and Cain brought some of the produce of the soil as an offering for Yahweh. 4:4. While Abel, for his part, brought the firstborn of his flocks and some of their fat as well. Yahweh looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but he did not look with favor on Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry and downcast. Well, why shouldn't he be? Both brothers had brought forth their first fruits as offering, but Yahweh rejected the vegetables and only accepted the blood sacrifice. This was to set a gruesome precedence. 4:8. Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let us go out." And while they were in the open country, Cain set on his brother Abel and killed him. Accursed and marked for fratricide. 4:16. Cain left the presence of Yahweh and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. We can assume that the phrase "left the presence of Yahweh" implies that Yahweh is a local deity and not omnipresent. Now Eden, according to Genesis 2:14, was situated at the source of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, apparently right where Lake Van is now, in Turkey. East of Eden, therefore, would probably be along the shores of the Caspian Sea, right in the Indo-European heartland. Cain settled in there among the people of Nod and married one of the women of that country. Here, for the first time, it is specifically mentioned the other people who are not of the lineage of Adam and Eve, i.e., the pagans. So let's look at this story from another viewpoint. There we were, around 6,000 years ago, living in our little farming communities around the Caspian Sea in the land of Nod, when this dude with a terrible scar comes stumbling in out of the sunset. He tells us this bizarre story about how his mother and father had been created by some god named Yahweh and put in charge of a beautiful garden somewhere out west, and how they had gotten thrown out for disobedience after eating some of the landlord's forbidden magic fruit of enlightenment. He tells us of murdering his brother, as the god of his parents would only accept blood sacrifice, and of receiving that scar as a mark so that all would know him as a fratricide. The poor guy is really a mess, psychologically. Obsessed with guilt, he is also obsessively modest, insisting on wearing clothes even in the hottest summer. And he has a hard time with our penchant for skinny dipping in the warm inland sea. He seems to believe that he is tainted by the sin of his parents' disobedience, that it is in his blood somehow, and will continue to contaminate his children and his children's children. One of our healing women takes pity on the poor sucker and marries him. 4:17. Cain had intercourse with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. He became the builder of a town, and he gave the town the name of his son, Enoch. With both of their first sons not turning out very well, Adam and Eve decided to try again. 425. Adam had intercourse with his wife, and she gave birth to a son whom she named Seth. 426. A son was also born to Seth, and he named him Enosh. This man was the first to invoke the name of Yahweh. Now, it doesn't mention here where Seth's wife came from. Another woman from Nod, possibly, or maybe someone from another Neolithic community downstream in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. But her folks also cannot be of the lineage of Adam and Eve and must also be counted among the other people. But whatever happened to Adam? After all, way back there in Genesis 2:17, God warned Adam about the magic fruit of knowledge. Yahweh had told him, "On the day you eat of it, you shall most surely die." So when did Adam die? Genesis 5:4. Adam lived for 800 years after the birth of Seth, and he became the father of sons and daughters. 5:5. In all, Adam lived for 930 years. Then he died. Hey, that's pretty good. 900 and some odd years isn't bad for a man who's been told he's going to die the next day. Well, the story goes on, and maybe next time the Witlesses come to visit, I'll tell more of it. But suffice it to say that those of us who are not of Semitic descent, i.e., not the lineage of Adam and Eve, cannot share in the original sin that comes with that lineage. Being that the Bible is the story of that lineage of Adam and Eve's descendants and their special relationship with their particular God, Yahweh, it follows that this is not the story of the rest of us. We may have been Cain's wife's people, or Seth's wife's people, or some other people over the hill and far away. But whichever people the rest of us are, as far as the Bible is concerned, we are the other people. And so we are continually referred to throughout. Later books of the Bible are filled with admonitions to the followers of Yahweh. Learn not the ways of pagans, with detailed descriptions of exactly what it is we do, such as erect standing stones and sacred poles, worship in sacred groves, and practice divination and magic, and worship the sun, moon, stars, and the Queen of Heaven. You must not behave as they do in Egypt, where once you lived. You must not behave as they do in Canaan, where I am taking you. You must not follow their laws. Leviticus 18:3. For Yahweh, as he so clearly emphasizes, is not the God of the pagans. We have our own lineage and our own heritage, and our tale is not told in the Bible. We are not made like clay figurines by a male deity out of the dust from the soil. We were born of our Mother Earth and have evolved over aeons in her nurturing embrace. All of us, in our many and diverse tribes, have creation myths and legends of our own origins and histories. Some of these tales may even be actually true. Like the descendants of Adam and Eve, many of us also have stories of great floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and other cataclysms that wiped out whole communities of our people, wherein I alone survived to tell the tale. Nearly all of our ancestral tribes, and especially those of us who today are reclaiming our own pagan heritage, lack that particular obsessive body modesty that seems to be a hallmark of the original sin alluded to in the story of the fall. We can be naked and unashamed. Why, our goddess even tells us, as a sign that you are truly free, you shall be naked in your rights. Not being born into sin, we have no need of salvation and no need of a Messiah to redeem our sinful souls. Neither heaven nor hell is our destination in the afterlife. We have our own various arrangements with our own various deities. The Bible is not our story. We have our own stories to tell, and they are many and diverse. In a long life, you may get to hear many of them. May you live long and prosper.